Yo, what is up guys, Dream here, and in today's video we're going to be covering what the best reward types are for making currency. So if you're in early maps and you're wondering, man, why am I not making any currency from this Sentinel mechanic everyone's raving about, this is the video for you. You're going to know exactly what you're looking for after this. And if you're trying to push things to the limit and you want to know exact chaos values on how much you can expect to make per reward activation, and you want to make much more, this is also the video for you. If you're curious about what the chance is of picking up a good Sentinel off the floor and if it's worth your time to pick them up, also the video for you. Trying to track down how to get these Sentinels or buy them off other players, yep, we're talking about that too. So we have a lot to cover, but first, if you're enjoying the content on Sentinel League, this stuff does take a little while, so make sure to subscribe to the channel, and if you like the content, chuck this video a like, I'd appreciate it. Alright, without further ado, let's get into it. So let's talk a little bit about what we're talking about here. So I'm talking about the suffixes that can appear on Pandemonium and Stalker Sentinels. So that's exactly what we're referring to here. So for example, we have here Sentinel Reward, 2.2% chance for Sentinel Reward. This one's got a 2.3% chance at Scarab and a 3.5% chance over here at Divination card. But hang on, which one is the best to run? I can only use one Sentinel at a time, and you get so many, it's pretty hard to decide which one you should run over another one, and which one you should prioritize to have, and which ones you should maybe sell. Well, let's dive into it. So we understand that these are suffixes, and first of all, we need to look at all the other suffixes to see what each of them are up against. So the test was as follows. I would get Sentinels of each different reward type, and I would test them extensively to understand their drop table, and whenever they did drop a reward, what was the average chaos value of that. Then I would get all my results, tally them all up, and give you guys a top list of the best ones to run, honorary mentions, and which ones probably aren't the best to run. And that's exactly what you have in this video. But first of all, what is an average reward? Well, whenever you apply a lead mechanic icon to a monster's head, that's what we're going to consider as a reward tile. So if you power an enemy and it gets an expedition reward from your 2.3% chance to get an expedition monster, well, that is what I'm talking about. That one reward tile on that guy's head is what we're referring to when we talk about everything in this video. All right, so let's get into the best rewards that you can get from this mechanic. So first of all, there is definitely a few on the lower side of profitability. If you like these mechanics or you're playing SSF, there is absolutely merit to them. But in terms of currency making, they don't just cut the mark. So if you hear anything in this video and you're like, hey man, whoa, a breach is missing there, it's because it didn't make the cut. But I will mention a couple here and why they're not on there. So the first one I want to talk about is breach. So breach, overall, it drops breach scarabs, and it also drops 2 stacks of splinters. Now, unfortunately, splinter stacks aren't very large, and also they have a very low chance to be Chayula or Ul-Natul. Additionally, the actual scarabs are also quite rare and not very expensive. So overall, the ones that are on the list, they just either don't drop enough, or the stuff that they do drop is just not very expensive. Ritual, another very good example, only drops about 10 to 14 ritual splinters, which when a ritual vessel is only 8C, it's just not going to be able to stand up to the likes of Fossil or Legion when it comes to things like that. So anything that I don't talk about here, unfortunately, we tested it, it didn't cut the mustard. Stuff like Harbinger is off the list for this reason. Okay, let's dive in. I'm going to talk about here the ones which are definitely pretty good, but if you really had the option, you necessarily wouldn't run. These are ones that you would, pick up, you'd identify, you'd set them aside, but you'd much prefer to sell them. Let's dive into that list. We'll talk about why they're not top picks, and we'll also talk about what they drop. So the first one I'm going to bundle together here is Divination and Currency. So these are absolutely massively high variance. So we've run a lot of both of these, and I can tell you it's basically a little bit of a gambler's game. So if you want to run currency, you do have an increased chance of an exalt. You will drop stuff like stacks of chaos orbs. You will overall accumulate more currency. But the thing about Sentinel is you get a ton of base currency rewards just from empowering monsters normally. That is absolutely how that's going to work. So increasing that chance further is good, but it's not actually going to be game breaking. And overall, after testing a dozen Cosmic Apex Sentinels with exclusively the currency reward on them and seeing what they have to offer, exalts might not be as common as you think. And that's why it's only in the honorary mention section. If you're trying to make megamons off of this mechanic, currency isn't bad, but it's certainly not the best way to do it. So overall, there's better options. Currency's not bad. Moving on to divination cards. So divination cards in high tier maps will always drop either a pile of 1 to 3 div cards, which can be anything in the game. You could get a doctor, you could get a mage blood card, or more likely the weighted actual outcome is to get, you know, stuff like, you know, faded connections, you know, stuff like the fusing divination cards, you know, stuff which is lower rarity, you know, things that are not super duper rare. That is what you can expect. However, they have value too, but overall, it's quite difficult to sell all those divination cards unless you get a really big hit, and you're basically going to be relying on the value of stacked decks, which again, unfortunately, just can't hold up to the value of some of these higher, you know, more consistent options. But overall, if you're a bit of a gambler, you want to go for that increased chance of an exalt, you want to go for that mage blood card, you could go and ahead and use these too. There's definitely plenty of them out there. You won't have any short of supply. They're pretty damn good. But overall, not top tier. Let's move on to the more niche ones here. So next up on the list is Abyss. So Abyss is a funny one. Most people write Abyss off as garbage. However, it's pretty interesting just through the sheer amount of Abyss jewels it drops. It's ridiculous, man. It's crazy. So you can expect per reward tile you apply to monsters' heads to get anywhere between 1 to 2 Abyss jewels. I seem to think that it's around a 1 or 2, so it's about a 1.5 average from my experience. Now, the cool thing about Abyss jewels is by themselves, okay, they're not really worth anything. However, when you get and look at the Atlas passive tree, there is a node called Corrupted Gaze. Now, Corrupted Gaze essentially says that all Abyss jewels, no restriction, have a 20% chance to be corrupted and have 5 or 6 random modifiers. Now, this is a big deal. First and foremost, the jewels are going to be identified, meaning you don't have to pick them up, you don't have to identify them, and they'll, in most cases, in a lot of cases, have 50% more mods minimum. So if you get a 6 mod, that is 50% better than a 4 mod. And these can only drop really from this method of farming. And overall, these can fetch a very high price, specifically the minion ones. We're talking multiple exalts, and on the low end, you can get a few ones which might be worth 40 or 50 C. But again, this is a gambler's paradise. Yes, it's good. Yes, it could have massive potential. But unless you're a bit of a gambler, you're looking for that crazy one, well, you're probably not going to make as much money as you would doing some of the higher tier things on this list. However, it is definitely a lot of fun. I can recommend it. The Abyss ones probably aren't in high demand, so if you're looking for a bit of a jackpot and you're not really interested in currency and divination, this could be your pick. And overall, that's why it's an honorary mention. Not consistent, but definitely very interesting. Next up, we have Heist. So Heist is so close to being a top tier option. So close, but what holds it back? So first of all, what does it drop? Well, it can drop any of the contracts, first and foremost. This is a fairly common occurrence. The main thing it drops is road markers. And these road markers drop in stacks between about 450 all the way up to about 600. And it does seem that it can be modified with a Thief's Trinket if you do want to invest in one of those. So this is about 1 to 2 C of road markers, which is actually pretty good. Overall, definitely not bad. In addition to that, we've also got the contracts. However, those are definitely going to be a little bit less valuable than you might think. When we think contracts, we think deception, counter-thermaturgy, perception, but there's so many bad contracts that you kind of have to average it out, and it's probably going to come out to about an average of 1 to 2 C per contract. And in addition to that, you also need to sell these, and there's no practical way to sell these outside of using TFT, which is why it doesn't make a high tier spot. In addition to that, they can also drop blueprints. These are quite rare, but they do happen, and those can be worth money. But again, similar to contracts, there's high variance. You might get a good one, you might get a bad one, but the thing that makes it so this isn't top tier is the fact that you have to sell on TFT, because that does slow things down. It makes it harder to get rid of this stuff, and unless you're comfortable with that, it definitely is not going to be the pick for you. But if you are comfortable with TFT, it could absolutely be a top tier pick, and if you can scoop these up for cheap, you could be making big money. And overall, I would recommend it. However, you do need to be wary about the drops, but overall, it does make quite a lot of currency, and it is just so close to being on top on this list. It just didn't make it because of the TFT thing. Next up, Delirium. Okay, so this, similar to Abyss, has big potential when used in the right way. So a lot of these things so far will work for white tier maps, as well as, yellow tier maps. With the exception of Heist, you'll get a bit of a lower premium on your contracts and blueprints. Abyss will certainly work though. You might get a few less OP mods, but Delirium is the one where I would never recommend it outside of high tier maps. And the reason for that is that most of the loot is cluster jewels. So it's got about a 50-50 split. You've got a 50% chance of getting simulacrum splinters. However, this stack size is actually quite small for the price of a simulacrum right now. You get anywhere between 5 to 8 simulacrum splinters, which is quite small. But then the other chance is to get a cluster jewel, and it's weighted. You have a highest chance to get a large cluster jewel, a little bit of a chance to get a medium, and a much rarer chance to get a small. However, the catch is these cluster jewels are actually based on the monster that you apply the empowerment to. So if you apply a Delirium Reward to a item level 86 monster, it'll drop an item level 86 cluster jewel. And that is the trick with cluster jewels. The item level is what makes them so expensive. If you can get high item level clusters, you can be in for a bit of profit. So the reason that's on here is because of this fact. If you get a big jackpot and you get a high item level cluster and you can sell it for like 3 or 4 exalts, you could be in business. Similar to Abyss, it is a bit of a jackpot one. And also there is a supporting node on the tree, which is going to help this. So if you're running Delirium and you're looking for a way to jack up that item level area, well, you might want to look into Lightless Legion. So it actually makes all the monsters in Abyssal Depths plus 3 levels. In tier 16 maps, that takes to 86, which means all cluster jewels you drop in that area are going to be item level 86 minimum, which puts a massive premium on your clusters. Those are very difficult to get, and it definitely does have quite a bit of merit. But again, it's a little bit of a gambler's goo there, so you're definitely going to have to look into that. It's definitely not top tier, and overall, it's more of a bit of a for fun one. All right, we've gotten through everything. Let's get into the juice. Let's get into the stuff that is absolutely, without a doubt, the best stuff to run for the money. Let's dive into it. Okay, so first up, we're going to have some numbers here. And these numbers come from me running a ton of this reward and averaging out all the rewards I get to give you a chaos number. This number is based off the economy a few days ago and is based on a limited sample size. So don't take it as gospel, but it will give you an idea of what you can expect to make from these rewards. Also worth noting, I did run these in tier 16 maps. Some of the rewards do end up being a little bit lower in terms of the quantity of items you get, as well as the quality of items you get in lower tier maps, but not so much so that I wouldn't recommend these as top tier picks. So if I tell you Metamorph is good in tier 16s, it's still going to be good in tier 1 maps. So if you're running those low tiers, don't worry, this absolutely still applies to you. Let's dive into it. First and foremost, bottom on the totem pole, but still not bad, Legion. So what does Legion drop? Well, whenever you proc a Legion reward, it's going to drop you either 2 incubators or 2 stacks of Legion splinters. Now, incubators are definitely worth money. The good ones, absolutely, you can use yourself and extract quite a lot of value out of. But the real value does come from the splinters. Emblems can sell for quite a nice amount, and the catch is that this actually does work with emblematic on the Atlas passive tree. So overall, there is a chance for splinters to drop as a emblem. It's about a 1% chance, so 1 in 100 splinters you get will be an emblem. And the way this works is if you drop a 6 stack of splinters, so you drop a stack of 6 splinters, well, you have 6 chances at that 1% to drop an emblem and convert one of those splinters into an emblem. That is how it works. And overall, you'll be dropping around 5, anywhere between 6 all the way up to 10 splinters. That is the kind of range that you can expect to drop in terms of splinters per activation if you're not getting incubators. So on average, you every time proc it have a 10% chance at an emblem. That was what I determined, and that is exactly what I tested and what I saw. So overall, Legion, not too bad. You can expect with the emblematic different notables on the tree to get a roughly 1.6C conservatively per activation of Legion. So every time you get that Legion icon on there, bing, on average, you should make 1.6C. That is my data in T16 maps. So there it is. Definitely on the lower side, but definitely not bad either. All right, next up, surprisingly, Scarab. So Scarab is heralded as this mega money fountain of just cash. However, unless you have a large quantity of scarabs, it actually isn't quite that easy to sell the scarabs. That's why it's a little bit lower on this list. However, scarabs are certainly worth selling, but if you're selling them one by one, it actually only averages out to be about 1.6C per activation, which is similar to Legion. Now, why is this? Well, first and foremost, the actual rarities of the scarabs are weighted. We extensively tested this. So you have a 10% chance for the scarab you drop to be gilded, a 30% chance for your scarab to be polished, and a 60% chance for it to be rusted. And the way that you can calculate all this out is that you can go look at the prices and calculate the average price of a gilded, rusted, and polished scarab, and you can work it out based on that. And that's exactly what I've done and exactly what you'll see down below. But overall, scarab only comes out to be about 1.6C in per activation, per reward that you get, and that is not in bulk. The question completely changes if you go to bulk. Absolutely, it is potentially one of the most rewarding, if not maybe the most rewarding if you have bulk, but on a case-by-case basis, if you're just running some low-tier maps, well, Scarab might not be the pick, but if you're a bulk juicer and you're going to get a bulk tab of Scarabs and you're going to sell it, then maybe it is the pick. But I've put it here. You guys know how much it is on the very absolute worst-case scenario, low end. I'm sure you guys can already see that it'll be much better on the high end. Now, worth noting, white maps will not drop gilded scarabs. They also will not drop polished scarabs. They will only drop rusted. So scarab is significantly worse in white maps. In yellow maps, they'll only drop polished. And it's only when you get to the red maps that you will start getting gilded. So that is absolutely very important to note. And overall, I would only recommend scarab for high tier players. And that is kind of where I'm at with that. So if you're a low tier player, probably best to sell the scarab one. If you're a high tier player, it's pretty good to run them, but there's definitely better options for lower tier players, and we'll get to that in a second here. I'll tell you exactly what the best ones are to run in those low tier maps. Next up, Metamorph. All right, Metamorph is a great pick. It is absolutely fantastic. It's next on the list here. You're going to drop anywhere between a stack of 1 to 3 catalysts, and they are fairly favorably weighted from my experience. You're going to get prismatic, you're going to get fertile, and if you have these things, they fly off the shelf. People are not running Metamorph. They don't seem to want to run Metamorph, and overall, these are good currency. This was a conservative number, which I priced a couple days ago. Overall, you're going to make the months. It's going to be pretty damn good. And overall, it doesn't look like how it's weighted in tiers. So if you try it out in low tiers, you should have luck exactly the same as in high tiers, which is definitely something you can recommend. If anyone knows contrary, though, make sure to post down below. But overall, Metamorph is looking juicy. It's about a 2.2C per activation on average. And that is the number that I've come up with. Next on the list, we've got Fossil. So a bit of a dark horse, honestly. I wasn't expecting this, but Fossil drops on average 2 fossils per activation, which is pretty damn good. It does drop 1 on occasion, but it's only when you get a rare fossil, it seems, that it drops 1. But most of the time, you're going to be dropping 2 fossils per activation, which is pretty damn good. And in addition to that, it can also drop prime chaotic resonators, which are really expensive, which is really, really good. You can expect to get those. Overall, Fossil, big pick. It's about 2.2C, and it's definitely a very, very nice one. So 2.3C even. All right, let's move on to the heavy hitters here. The ones which I consider the best. And this one is first up, Sentinel. Sentinel Reward is nuts. It's crazy. You are going to be getting all kinds of good things. You're going to be getting recombinators. You're going to be getting bulk power cores. You are going to be getting special power cores. And of course, not actually included in this figure, you're going to be getting a ton of Sentinels. So here we have the number 2.7C per activation. This is only based on power cores and recombinators. All of the Sentinel stuff, all the unique Sentinels were not included because, you know, it's impossible to price that accurately. And overall, I felt it better to exclude it. So while it might be only a little bit higher than Fossil right now, and potentially lower than Scarab in the long run, when you include the value from picking up and identifying those Sentinels, you absolutely see it as the second best one. Absolutely. And you are going to be having good luck with this in low tier maps. If you're doing low tier maps, this is the one I would recommend to you. It's very, very common. You can go out, you can get it, pick it up, run it in your maps, get some recombinators, sell those puppies, make some cash, and upgrade that build, man. It's very, very good. So overall, Sentinel is a great pickup. It's number 2 on my list here. 2.7C, excluding Sentinels. It's absolutely crazy. Lastly, the king of currency, Expedition. If you can get an Expedition Sentinel, it's worth like 1 Exalt if you were to sell it, man. These things are insane. So Overall, you are looking at getting 7.4 C on average per activation from your Sentinels. Absolutely crazy. It's really good, man. And obviously, what you drop here is going to be as follows. You're going to drop anywhere between 1 to 4 of the Expedition reroll currencies. So 1 Astro Galley, 4 Astro Galley. It's not weighted. You could get 4 and the same chance to get 1. That is how it works. What is weighted, though, is the type of reroll currency. So it works a little bit about a little like this. So you have a very, very high chance of getting Astro Galley. You have a medium chance of getting a exotic coin or a scrap metal, and you have a low chance of getting a burial medallion. The ratio for you math nerds out there is 4 for Astro Galley, 2 for scrap metal and exotic, and 1 for burial medallions. But I'm sure some people will understand that. But anyway, that is where it's at. Okay, guys, so we now understand the best one. So if you're in low tiers, Expedition, Sentinel, Fossil, Metamorph, these are your picks. Go get them, Tiger. This is going to be some good currency. And if you're in high tiers, Scarab and pretty much everything we talked about is on the table. Pick your favorite and go ahead and make some cash. All right, so the next thing I want to talk a little bit about is how this applies to charges, because we're about to talk about how to buy these things, and I want you guys to be educated. You need to understand how many things you can expect to get from that. All right, so we're going to take a look here at this Sentinel Reward, Emberstone Pandemonium Sentinel, okay? So it says we have a 3% chance of getting a Sentinel Reward, okay? And it says it empowers roughly 100 enemies. Okay, so we can do some quick math here. I'm going to teach you guys how to do this. However, stay tuned to Firegrass's channel. He's going to make a calculator for you, which is essentially going to do this formula for you on the fly. However, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you guys how to work it out manually, and then you guys can go check the calculator out when he releases that video. All right, so if you wanted to figure it out, so I can empower 100 enemies, and I have a 3% chance of getting a Sentinel Reward. Okay, so on average, if I empower all those enemies per map, I should make around 3 Sentinel Rewards. I should get about 3 because I have a 3% chance and there's 100 enemies. Okay, that makes sense. On average, 3 rewards. We just said that they make about 2.7 C times 2.7. So now you're making about 8.1 C on average per map, excluding Sentinels that you drop. All right, well, that's pretty damn good to start out with. Okay, right? And you can use Pandemonium Sentinels twice per map. So that's 16 C per map right off the bat. And that's excluding other empowerment rewards. So you can kind of see, okay, we're starting to stack up some cash here. And this is in low tier maps as well. Okay, so the next thing to do is to look at the amount of charges this thing has, all right? So this one has 18 charges, meaning I can use it 18 times. So it's whatever that number is we just calculated. So again, I get 3 Sentinel Rewards, 2.7 C each, that's 8.1 C, and I can use it 18 times, so times 18. So this Sentinel, in theory, should be worth roughly 145 C worth of value to you. It doesn't mean you buy it for 145 C, it means that you're gonna make 145 C off running it and getting all the rewards out of it on average. Okay, now that we understand that, you also need to factor in the fact that you could keep this thing alive and even improve it by crossbreeding, but that is another video. But you need to understand that you could keep this alive and perpetuate it and get another 145 C value Sentinel or better in the future. But yeah, again, that'll be in my ultimate guide coming up very soon. All right, and you can do a similar thing with all of these things. So for example, with the Scarab one, let's quickly do it. 85, and then you're gonna have 2.3% chance to kind of get that. Divided by 2.3. Okay, that is not what we want. 2.3 divided by 8. You guys kind of get the point. I'm not doing the math here, but you guys get the point. So it's roughly, probably about 1.5 Scarab Rewards on average from this Sentinel. And overall, you can kind of do the math on that. Okay, is that worth my time? Probably not, right? Unless you're selling in bulk Scarabs. And this is the kind of process you guys want to go through. And overall, that calculator that Firegrass is going to put out is going to be your source of truth for figuring out if a Sentinel's worth it and overall how well it's going to do. It's also worth noting that those modifiers on the things are modified by your Sentinel controller. So if you have, a 100 charge or 100 empowerment Pandemonium Sentinel, and you take this node over here, it's going to give you a 15% increase to your money, man. It's just that easy. Overall, you can absolutely juice these things up, right? For 145 C, bro, you can push that all the way up to 200 just with the Sentinel controller. It's completely crazy. It's really, really good. Okay, so we've talked about the best ones to run in white tier maps, red tier maps. We've talked about how to calculate the value of them. Let me talk a little bit about how to get these things. Okay, so first of all, you can identify them. What is the chance of identifying a good Sentinel? Let's get into it. So on average, to get a pretty good Sentinel. It's roughly about a 16% chance if you just identify a magic Sentinel with one suffix across the board. So it's a pretty good chance. It's almost a 1 in 5 to get a good mod on your Sentinel, just straight out of the bat. It's pretty good. And if you identify a rare with multiple suffixes, like, it's even better. You have a much higher chance of getting something good, and it's actually well and truly in your favor. And if you want the super good mods, the ones we talked about here at the end, it's going to be roughly about an 8 to 9% chance to get that, which is actually, again, pretty high. Now, overall, that chance is going to increase with item level though, because if you take a look here, you guys can observe, if you're looking at the exact specific rewards you want, like Scarab, Fossil, Expedition, Sentinel, if you want the very best, it's going to be better at higher tiers. That's just the way it is. Overall, you can look at my table here and you guys can be like, okay, I understand like that, if you want to get a nerd out with me. However, the general gist of it is higher tier equals higher chance at best of better mods, but lower tier is still good. You're still going to get good stuff. And when you're running them, it doesn't really matter. You can get some better stuff in higher tiers, like for example Scarab, but overall don't fret too much about it. All right, so that's how you're gonna identify them. It's got a pretty good chance. I recommend picking up all the Sentinels, at least with the good bases, identifying them and making sure you're searching for the good rewards. Next up, if you want to trade for them, let's jump over to the trade website. You're gonna be able to use this trade search that I've created for you guys to find the Sentinels you want. This will be down in the description below with my spreadsheet as well. Go check it out, guys. So in this case, all you're gonna want to do is come in here, copy and paste my trade search, and then take a look at the rewards here. Look for the one that you want, and if you want to run, for example, I want to run Sentinel and Expedition because I'm running lower tier maps. I want to try and get some juice in my white maps. I'm going to go ahead and take a look, and then all you need to do is hit search. And it's going to pop up here with some results, man. So I can take a look. Okay, so I got the Expedition Reward here. We got the Sentinel Reward here. And you can kind of look through here. You can kind of start using the calculation that we're teaching you. Okay, so if I have 100 enemies, it's 2% chance. That's 2 rewards. Okay, that's 14C here. You can kind of get an idea. Or you can use Firegrass's calculator that's coming out and just punch all the details into that. And it'll tell you if you're going to make money. But overall, we were talking about like 145C earlier. You can see here that they're quite cheap for actually what you get. Now, don't overpay for them. Make sure you do a little bit of napkin math. But overall, you can make some big money as a player in any tier right now by buying Sentinels of other players. And using this trade search, you will get good ones. They will not be duds. They won't be low charge ones. Overall, they are going to be bangers. Make sure you click on the ones which you can handle and which you want to do. And overall, you're going to make a pretty good amount of profit, man. Now, I will just caution you, make sure your Sentinel controller is set up to handle the Sentinels you're buying. It's going to suck if you're doing calculations using the calculator and like putting it all in and you don't have all the right nodes, man. So you're going to make sure you want to have all the right nodes. But in addition to that, you're going to want to make sure that you actually get the most value out of your Sentinel. If you're running in and you're like, yeah, man, hell yeah, let's pop the Stalker Sentinel, and you like have an Expedition one on and you die to the first pack and it despawns, you're probably losing money there, right? You definitely want to make sure that you're doing content that you can comfortably do and that you can empower the full value of the Sentinel doing. And there's going to be future videos on that. Specifically, the Robo Legion strategy I'm doing right now will be the next one. But overall, that's the kind of general gist of it. If this helped you kind of understand which the best ones were, definitely make sure to hit that like button. This took ages, but hopefully you guys enjoyed the video and are still enjoying the content. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.